A hurricane uncovered a lost colony on his land, what he found inside solved. A 400-year-old mystery. In the autumn of 2016, after a massive hurricane scoured the coast of North Carolina, a history professor was walking the storm-ravaged beach of his newly inherited family property. The storm had stripped away tons of sand from the ancient dunes, revealing something that had been hidden for over 400 years. The dark, petrified tops of a wooden wall, a defensive palisade from a forgotten settlement. He thought he had just stumbled upon the archaeological find of a lifetime. He had no idea that this discovery would put him in direct conflict with a powerful and secretive organization, and that he was about to unravel a modern-day conspiracy, a secret that was directly tied to America's oldest and most haunting mystery, the fate of the Lost Colony of Roanoke. But before we start our story, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and hit that notifications bell so you won't miss any of our new, incredible stories. To understand the monumental importance of this discovery, we must first travel back to the very beginning of the English story in America. The year is 1587, more than 30 years before the Mayflower Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. A group of over 100 English men, women, and children, sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh, established a settlement on Roanoke Island in what is now North Carolina. This was to be the first permanent English colony in the New World. The colony's governor, an artist named John White, witnessed the birth of his granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. But the colony was struggling. They were running low on supplies, and their relationship with the local Native American tribes was tense. Governor John White was forced to make a difficult decision. He would sail back to England to gather more supplies and reinforcements, leaving the 117 colonists behind. He promised them he would return as soon as possible, but his return was catastrophically delayed. When he arrived in England, he found the country on the brink of war with the mighty Spanish Armada. Every available ship was commandeered for the war effort, and he was unable to secure passage back to his colony. It would be 3 long, agonizing years before he was finally able to return. In August of 1590, he landed back on the shores of Roanoke Island, but he was met with an eerie and profound silence. The settlement was completely deserted. The houses had been dismantled. There were no signs of a struggle, no bodies, no skeletons. It was as if the 117 men, women, and children of the Roanoke colony had simply vanished from the face of the earth. The only clue they left behind was a single cryptic word carved into a wooden post: Croatoan. For over 400 years, the fate of the lost colony of Roanoke has remained America's oldest unsolved mystery. What happened to them? Were they killed by a hostile tribe? Did they try to sail back to England and get lost at sea? Or did they, as the clue Croatoan might suggest, abandon their settlement and go to live with the friendly Croatoan tribe on a nearby island? For centuries, archaeologists and historians have searched for a definitive answer, but the trail has remained stubbornly cold. It was this ancient, haunting mystery that was about to be reawakened by a modern storm. Our story's protagonist is a man we'll call Dr. Alistair Finch, a respected but slightly jaded history professor from a university in New England. He had recently inherited an old, remote, and slightly dilapidated family property on the coast of North Carolina, a piece of land that had been in his family for generations but that he had not visited since he was a child. In the autumn of 2016, a massive Category 3 hurricane slammed into the coast. The storm was devastating, but it also did something else. Its powerful storm surge acted like a giant, liquid bulldozer. Finch traveled down to inspect the damage. As he was walking along the newly carved-out beach, he saw them. Sticking out of the eroded face of a dune were a series of dark wooden posts, arranged in a deliberate, straight line. His historian's eye immediately recognized what he was looking at. This was not a modern fence. This was the remains of an ancient palisade, a defensive wall. His heart began to pound with excitement, and it wasn't long before he found the first definitive proof. It was a shard of pottery of a distinct blue-gray type, the exact type of pottery the Roanoke colonists were known to have used. He had just stumbled upon a potential, previously unknown 16th-century English settlement site in the very region where the lost colony had vanished. He immediately contacted the state's leading archaeological authority, which was heavily funded and influenced by a powerful and very wealthy private historical organization. To his absolute shock and frustration, they dismissed his find out of hand. They told him it was likely the remains of a later, unimportant colonial-era fence, and that they had no resources to investigate. They shut him down. As he was leaving the meeting, confused and angry, a young junior archaeologist from the Foundation quietly approached him in the hallway. "Be careful," the young man whispered, his eyes darting around nervously. "The Foundation doesn't want anyone digging out there. They're looking for something else. You're not the first person they've tried to get rid of." Finch realized with a jolt that he hadn't just stumbled upon a historical site. He had stumbled into a modern-day conspiracy. He began to do a different kind of research. He started digging into the history of the Raleigh Legacy Foundation. On the surface, they were a respectable, philanthropic organization dedicated to preserving the history of early English settlement in America. But as he looked deeper, he found that the Foundation was a secretive and immensely powerful entity run by a board of directors whose family names could be traced back generation after generation to the wealthy London merchants who had originally financed Sir Walter Raleigh's expeditions in the 16th century. For over 400 years, they had maintained a quiet but iron-fisted control over all official archaeological research in the region. This is where the story shifts from a historical mystery to a modern conspiracy. Dr. Finch began to piece together a wild but plausible theory. The Foundation wasn't interested in finding the lost colonists. They were looking for something else entirely. They were on a centuries-long treasure hunt. Finch uncovered old archived letters and journals from the Foundation's founders which spoke of a secret legend, a story that was not in the official history books. The legend claimed that the Roanoke colony was not just a settlement, it was also a secret mining and prospecting operation. The story went that the colonists had discovered a massive, high-yield gold deposit somewhere on the mainland, and that they had created a secret map before they vanished. For 400 years, the Raleigh Legacy Foundation had been secretly searching for this lost map and for the billion-dollar gold mine it supposedly led to. They had been systematically suppressing any real archaeological work in the area. Finch now knew he was in a race against time. He had to find the real truth of what had happened to the colonists before the Foundation could find their mythical map and potentially destroy the real, historically priceless site in their greedy pursuit of gold. He returned to his family's storm-ravaged property and began his own, careful and methodical excavation. For weeks, he worked alone, carefully digging and sifting the soil around the exposed wooden palisade. He found it. Buried deep within the foundations of what seemed to be a small central structure, it was a sealed lead box, about the size of a book. It was not a treasure chest, but its weight promised something important inside. With his heart pounding, he carefully carried the box back to his temporary workshop. Inside, perfectly preserved and wrapped in a piece of oilcloth, was not a map to a gold mine. It was a small, leather-bound journal. The ink on the pages was faded, but the handwriting was clear. It was a diary written by one of the Roanoke colonists in the final years of the 16th century. As Dr. Finch began to read, the 400-year-old mystery of the lost colony finally began to unravel. The journal told a story of hardship and survival. It confirmed that the colonists, facing starvation and hostile tribes, had indeed abandoned their settlement on Roanoke Island. And it confirmed that the clue Croatoan was true. One group of colonists had gone south to live with the friendly Croatoan tribe. But the journal revealed a new, incredible truth. The colony had split. The author of the journal was part of a second, smaller group that had journeyed north up the Chowan River, seeking a more defensible and fertile location. And they had established a new, secret settlement, a place they called Hope's Landing. It was the very site that Dr. Finch had just discovered. The journal was a detailed, heartbreaking, and historically priceless record of their new life, their struggles to survive, and their eventual peaceful assimilation with a local Native American tribe. Dr. Finch now held in his hands the definitive proof that solved America's oldest mystery. The colonists were not lost, they had survived. Bypassing the corrupt Raleigh Legacy Foundation, he took his findings to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. The discovery was hailed as the most important find in early American history in over a century. The Raleigh Legacy Foundation, its centuries-long greedy conspiracy now exposed, was disgraced and forced to open its private archives to public scrutiny. The story of Dr. Finch's discovery is a profound testament to the perseverance of a single individual and a powerful reminder that the truth, no matter how long it has been buried by time or by secrets, has a way of finally finding its way into the light.